turned 82 in March. The cake was small, just me and a neighbor from down the hall who knocked once, handed it to me, and said she didn't want it to go to waste. I thanked her like it was a gift meant just for me. I used to think I would feel proud at this age, accomplished, settled, like a man who climbed a mountain and could finally look back at the view. Instead, I sit by the window most mornings and watch other people hurry to work. I was very good at hurrying. For 40 years, I chased something I thought would steady me. A title, a bigger office, my name on the side of a building. I got most of it, too. People used to stand when I walked into a room. They laughed at jokes that weren't funny. They said my decisions mattered. And they did matter, just not in the way I imagined. When I was 26, I told my wife we would only live like this for a few years. Small apartment, second-hand couch, dinner at the table with one chair that wobbled. I said, "Give me time. I'll build something for us." She believed me. I believed me. There's a particular hunger in a young man when he feels average. It keeps him up at night. It whispers that he is replaceable, that nobody will remember him. I didn't want to be replaceable, so I worked. Long hours at first, then longer. Nights that turned into mornings at the office. I told myself I was being responsible, providing, protecting our future. When our first son was born, I held him in the hospital room and felt something loosen in my chest. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what matters. Then my phone rang. It always rang. I missed his first steps. I saw them later on a grainy video my wife had recorded. I remember smiling, proud of him, and proud of the fact that I was in a meeting that morning that secured a major contract. It felt like balance. I told myself he wouldn't remember. He doesn't remember that day. But he remembers something else. He remembers that I was tired, that I was distracted, that when he asked me to watch him jump off the porch, I said, "In a minute." There were many minutes. They stack up, quietly. By the time I was 40, we had a house large enough that I could lose my own thoughts in it. Hardwood floors, a kitchen island my wife had circled in magazines years before. I handed her the keys and said, "We made it." She smiled. She always smiled. But she had lines around her eyes I hadn't noticed forming. We stopped eating dinner together without meaning to. The boys had activities. I had dinners with clients. She started going to bed before I got home. I told myself it was a season. Everything was a season. There's a kind of success that makes other people proud of you. Your parents brag. Your friends introduce you with a certain tone. He's done very well. I won awards. I shook hands with men whose names appeared in newspapers. I remember standing at a podium once, applause filling the room, and thinking, why does this feel so quiet inside? Not empty, just quiet, like I was waiting for something to land. When my younger son turned 12, he stopped asking me to come to his games. I noticed because my wife mentioned it casually. "It's okay," she said. "He knows you're busy." I nodded, grateful for her understanding. I didn't ask him why. I told myself boys pull away, that it was natural. I was building something that would support them long after I was gone. That's what I said, anyway. In my 50s, the company reached its peak.
We expanded overseas. I traveled constantly. Airports blurred together. Hotel rooms that all smelled faintly of cleaning spray and loneliness. I learned how to sleep on planes. I learned how to eat alone in restaurants without looking uncomfortable. I learned how to fill silence with work. At home, silence was growing too.
My wife and I stopped fighting. That sounds like a good thing, but it wasn't. We simply ran out of things to argue about. We moved around each other carefully, politely, like long-term roommates who shared a history but not much else. One night I came home earlier than usual. No call ahead, no warning. She was sitting at the kitchen table alone. No TV, no book, just her hands folded in front of her. I asked what she was doing. "Waiting," she said. "For what?" She looked at me in a way that made my stomach tighten. "I don't know anymore." I remember feeling defensive, tired. I told her she knew why I worked so hard. I told her this was for us. She nodded, but something in her had already stepped back. The turning point didn't come with a dramatic fight, no slammed doors, no betrayal. It came on a Tuesday afternoon when my assistant knocked on my office door and told me my wife had collapsed at home. Heart attack. They said it was quick, that she didn't suffer long. I remember the hospital hallway, the fluorescent lights, the sound of my own shoes on the floor. I remember thinking, this is temporary. This will pass. I just need to get through this meeting with the doctor. I had always believed everything could be managed if I stayed calm enough. But there are some things you cannot manage. When I stood beside her hospital bed, I noticed how small she looked, smaller than I remembered. Her hair streaked with gray I hadn't really seen before. I held her hand. It was the first time in years that I had nowhere else to be. After the funeral, the house felt enormous, not luxurious, not impressive, just hollow. My sons came, of course. They were kind, responsible, successful in their own ways. I watched them move through the rooms and realized they were guests there. They didn't belong to that house. Neither did I. I retired the following year. People threw a party. Speeches were made about my leadership, my legacy. I smiled for the photos. Then I went home to an empty driveway. For the first few months, I didn't know what to do with myself. I had structured every hour of my life for decades. Without meetings and deadlines, the days stretched out like long roads with no signs. I tried hobbies, golf, gardening, even joined a board or two. It all felt like rearranging furniture in a room that was already empty. The quiet grew louder. One afternoon, I found an old box in the closet. Inside were drawings from my sons when they were little, stick figures with oversized heads. One of them had written, "Dad at work," and drawn me behind a large rectangle, smiling. I sat on the floor with those papers for a long time. I wasn't a bad man. I need to say that. I didn't gamble away our savings. I didn't betray my family. I paid for college. I showed up when it truly mattered, at least in the ways I understood mattering. But I delayed the small things. I delayed sitting on the porch, delayed listening to stories that rambled, delayed asking my wife what she meant when she said she was tired. I assumed there would be more time. There usually is, until there isn't. The thing that finally made me feel something close to peace didn't come from a bank account or a building with my name on it. It came from a dog. My neighbor's grandson couldn't keep him. A mutt, brown fur, one ear that never quite stood up. They asked if I would take him. I almost said no. I didn't see myself as a man who needed a dog, but the apartment was too quiet, and I surprised myself. The first morning he was there, he padded into my bedroom at dawn and rested his chin on the mattress. No agenda, no expectation, just presence. We started walking every day, slowly. My knees aren't what they used to be. At first, I brought my phone out of habit. Then one day I forgot it, and nothing happened. No crisis, no urgent call, just the sound of birds I hadn't noticed in years. Neighbors began to stop and talk, not because of my title, not because of what I'd built, because of the dog. They asked his name. They told me about their own lives, small things, a granddaughter learning to read, a tomato plant that finally grew. I started listening, really listening. There's something about being old that strips you down. You don't have the energy to pretend anymore. When people ask how you are, you answer honestly. A little lonely. Doing my best. It surprises them. It surprised me. My sons visit more now. Not often, but more. We sit at the small kitchen table in my apartment. No grand dining room, no long polished table. Last year, my older son apologized. He said he always felt like he had to achieve something big to earn my attention, that he never felt quite enough. I wanted to tell him that none of it mattered, that I would trade every award, every contract for one more ordinary Tuesday night with him at 12 years old, asking me to watch him jump off the porch. But time doesn't bargain. So I told him I was proud of him, not for what he'd built, just for who he was. It felt late, but true. Success didn't make me happy. It made me busy. It made me respected. It made me comfortable. What made me happy came quietly when there was nothing left to chase. Morning light on the kitchen counter, the weight of a dog's head on my knee, my son's voice on the phone, unhurried. I used to think happiness would feel like applause, like something loud enough to drown out doubt. It doesn't. It feels like sitting still and not wishing you were somewhere else. If you're younger than me, you probably believe you have time. I did too. Maybe you do. I'm not telling you to quit your job or abandon your plans. Work matters. Providing matters. Building things can be honorable. Just don't delay the small moments the way I did. They don't announce their importance. They don't send reminders. They simply pass. These days I wake up early. 82-year-old men don't sleep much. I make coffee. I sit by the window. The dog settles beside me. Sometimes I close my eyes and try to remember my wife's laugh. It comes back in pieces. I wish I had memorized it better. There are things I cannot fix, years I cannot relive, a kitchen table that will never again hold all four of us at once. But there is this morning, there is this breath, and for the first time in my life, I am not rushing through it.
If this meant something to you, I'm glad, truly. I've had a long life, a full one by most standards. I built what I said I would build. I just didn't understand back then what I was building it for. Now, in the quiet, I finally do. And it isn't the building that matters.